Bum, bum, bum,
ba
bum,
ba
bum, bum, bum,
ba
bum,
ba 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 ba
bum,
ba ba ba.
bum, bum.
Kilted. Ba.
Da-da. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Kilted Dragon Jar. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. That was
Woo!
awesome. I thought
And
you
welcome
would
back
do
to
it at the
Tilted Balls Podcast.
beginning. I was trying to have my backbeat being happy birthday, but you tricked me.
My brain was all over the place, so that's what got it. That's what
That's
it was. So
perfect.
yeah, listeners, if you didn't see it on Twitter, the rest of the stuff, it is Kilted's birthday. He's the big 3-0 today, so yay,
Yep.
happy birthday.
It's awesome. If I just knew what I knew now at 30, that would be
Oh
spectacular.
my gosh, we were having a talk today. Um, have you ever watched Aim High?
That doesn't sound familiar.
Really? I feel so bad for you, right? I think that's the right name of the movie. I love
It's a
that.
movie?
It's a movie.
Okay.
Oh wait, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Sky High. I think it's Sky High. Is it Sky
No,
High?
no, no.
Yeah, Sky High. Oh my gosh. Great movie. Super cheesy, but I love it. But if
What's it on?
what's it on?
Is it on anything?
I imagine it's on something.
On straight.
Probably
Oh, so it's not
Disney.
something you've seen recently.
No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
Kurt Russell, Kelly
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
I have not seen it. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, that looks terrible. I'm gonna have to watch it.
so good. So good. Watch it with Ollie. He'll have a good time.
Okay.
But anyway, once you watch it, this will make a little bit more sense. But
Okay, go ahead.
we were talking today about what it would be like if you could be turned into a baby. So if you could get turned into a baby again, and would people who are older, like in their 90s, pay to be turned back into a baby, especially if they got to keep most of their memories? I'm like, that is like the best gift ever, honestly. Like,
So, so let me go out on a limb here and
mhm.
say I already believe that when we're born, we have all those memories, but they just go away, which we've covered a little bit on here,
Yes,
especially
yes.
talking about the kids and connections and things that they have before they can really communicate. And as they're going through that first little bit, they forget everything.
You're
So I
right.
wouldn't say how about toddler? Maybe toddler, middle schooler. I wouldn't want to be turned into a baby because I've already forgotten everything I knew once already. I don't
Well,
want to pay
and
and forget again.
some people were saying how frustrating it would be to know everything but to be a baby where you can't really talk yet and you
Hmm.
can't move, you don't have that muscle control, but you
Yeah.
remember everything. I'm like, yeah, it'd be worth the trade though. Like, because you're going to know a whole bunch as you're growing up and not make those same mistakes. I go, and how
Very
weird it
true
would
that.
be, because a lot of your decisions in your youth are caused by your hormones. And even in your later
That's
life,
true.
it's caused by your hormones, which is something I wanted to bring up last time. And I totally somehow, when we were getting so good and so in deep, but when we were
Hmm.
talking about marriage, one of the things that always like comes up to me when I'm thinking about people who get married and get divorced, that I think they don't realize, and I think society does a really bad job of explaining, is when you get married, that person will not be the same person over time. Like their hormones
Hmm.
will change their personality over time many
Hmm.
times. For females, you're going to get like four different personalities for sure, not counting the two or three they come with because they're disturbed, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
But they're going to, right? Like a pregnant woman is totally different than a non-pregnant woman. A
Hmm.
postpartum woman is totally different. A woman after menopause is totally different.
Yeah.
Men go through it too, ladies, so I'm not trying to say not men, but
Hmm.
you need to know, like when you get married, it's going to be a different person over and over and over, and
Yeah.
that's what you're signing up for when you get married.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realize that. They're like, oh, I love this teenager,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden they become a mom and you're like, you're not who I married.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not,
Yeah.
right? That's part of the gig,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not who Amy married, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of me that's still the same, but so, people in high school who only knew me in high school would not recognize me today in a normal setting,
Yeah.
right? Wouldn't that be
True.
true?
Mm-hmm.
Like they'd have no idea. And I'll hear people talk about that. They're like, oh my gosh, I remember you in high school. Like you were so crazy and mean. And I'm like, I don't get that a lot anymore. Like I have
Yeah.
kind
People
of
who
like,
know me now.
right. And like, it's kind of like our buddy. And I do this all the time. And I laugh to myself. We were talking, I think we said this in the episode. If you have to tell people you're not racist, you're probably racist. And I do the opposite where I'm like, I'll tell people, I'm like, I'm really, really mean. Like I'm not a nice person. And they're like, ah. And I'm like now I'm to the point where I'm like, if I'm having to tell people I'm mean,
Might
it
not be mean
I
anymore.
I might not be mean anymore. Like if I'm
Mm-hmm.
having to explain that to you, because I'm sitting there going, man, in early 2000s, I never had to tell people that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they knew they knew what they were getting into. Nowadays I'm like, no, I'm mean. And they're like, ha ha ha, you're not really mean. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, like I am. And they're like, yeah, right. And then I'm like, maybe I'm not mean anymore.
You moved on from that version of you.
I've moved on. I'm not that person.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome.
So yeah, so we all change. And so I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting when we were talking about marriage, that people don't realize that's what they're signing up for.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like you're not signing up to be with that person for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to change over and over. You're signing up to be with that soul.
Yep. You're not even you at the cellular level. I mean,
No,
everything is different. I mean, in that amount of time, what is it? Every 7 years?
for
Or is
your
that dog
skin,
years?
for your
Where,
skin,
oh, it's just your, but everything is being replaced, right? I mean, you have all new blood cells. You
but
have,
most of it. I don't know how your nerve cells do. Nerve cells have a really hard
okay,
time replicating, but
okay,
everything else is replicating all the time, right?
yeah, yeah. So
And it'd
who
be
knows?
weird if your bones were always replicating, so maybe not them as much.
Oh, okay. No, I guess
But
that
the
makes
rest of
sense. I
you
guess
is, the
that.
rest of you
Mm-hmm.
is.
You have to love someone's skeleton.
You've got to love their bones
Mm-hmm. And I
because
do
she
like,
don't eat meat.
yeah, she sure likes the bone.
She sure likes the bone.
I do like how you said that you love the soul. It's very much it's funny because a gentleman I've been listening to recently, one of his talks, he asked people if they had a soul, the audience, and they said
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
yes, like we have a soul. And he said, no, you are a soul, like you are the soul. Like everything that you're going through, you don't have a soul. It's not outside of you. It's you, and you're connected to everything. So,
People have a really hard time with that concept, not just with souls, but with like everything. Like it's one
mm-hmm,
of the things I'm always trying to impart on people, that some things just exist. Like my favorite one is like the nucleus of an atom. People are like,
mm-hmm.
oh, protons are in the nucleus. I'm like, they're not in the nucleus. They're like, yeah, that's where they are. I'm like, that's where they are. Yes. They're not in it. That's where they are. There
Yeah.
isn't like a thing that's the nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
That like right, there's not like some envelope that you're putting
Yeah,
protons and
yeah.
neutrons in.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a soul, you are the soul, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
that weird little mental shift, and people don't do that enough. Which, you know what, I just realized that's like a chapter that should be in our book. People
Mm-hmm.
don't see mental shifts and how important those mental shifts
Yeah.
are,
I thought
right?
that was a great one. Actually, there's
That's
a friend that
fantastic.
I wanted to send that to. You know, because you have different friends that are going through different things, and maybe now would be a good time for her to. She may not be connected. May not be thinking that because of some of the issues that are going on. I think that she thinks a lot of things are outside of her control. Like you have
Yes.
all the control. I mean, and a lot of people that's a hard thing to understand. But that's the same where he's talking about you are the soul. Like it's not outside. So yeah.
I get into that when people talk about unions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they'll be like, what's the union done for me? Or I'm not sure if I want to be in a union. And I'm like, you don't even understand what a union is. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you are the union. Like
Uh-huh.
you don't get into the union. That's why it's union. Union means together. Like you are the union. When you say
Yeah.
what does the union do for me? I'm like, you are the union. You're saying, what
Hmm.
do I do for me? When you're asking
Yeah.
about a relationship, like, this relationship takes too much for me. Like you are the relationship.
Yeah.
It's you. And
Hmm.
so, you know, it's like a thing, right? It's like a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
what?
oh, go ahead.
No, go. Yours is more
No,
important.
I was just gonna. This brought me back for a second because you did wish me a happy birthday, and I do want to thank you so much. And I was thinking about this all day because a really good friend reached out. He's like, "Hey, tomorrow's your birthday. I want to take you out to lunch or something." And I said, "Let's go disc golfing," because having that hour of time and the hour and couple more hours we may spend together later is much more important to me, especially at this stage of life, than anything. Or I mean, yes, the company, we would have had fun eating food and blah blah blah. We would have got some amazing food, but to go out and have the time together on the disc golf course was just amazing. And this is amazing being able to spend my birthday with you. And earlier I had
Mm.
dinner with the family, and it's just been an amazing day.
Yeah, I'm super glad that the podcast exists, right?
Hmm.
Probably one of the best ideas we've ever had because I think it helps us spend for sure an hour plus all the time
Hmm.
together. And I think that's
Yeah,
really important, right?
yeah, it's been
You're a
amazing.
valuable commodity. I'm glad you exist.
Hmm. And it does look like an explosion went off behind me. We have been trying to organize everything that we've moved in. Yes, the same for you. Brian's been moving as well. You're
I do
still
move. I do
moving
move.
in.
So I had an interesting thought today that I was kind of like giggling and laughing about.
Hmm.
Um, so wait, what I was about to say earlier is I have Discord up. So I don't
Yeah.
know about our listeners, but you and I tend to always have Discord up. I'm
Hmm.
at two computers and it's popping up on both computers all the time. Like I keep getting these notifications, like seriously, they're coming like boom, 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 boom. But I think it's excusable because I think one of them was like, "Yeah, we're having a baby boy," and I'm like, "Wait, what?" Like, so it's
Oh,
like a
really?
different friend's Discord,
Hmm.
and like I only saw that, and because I've been just Xing them
Yeah.
as they go, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, I think I missed something important," because they're just chatting, and it's like literally notifying me every time, and like people are saying, "Congrats, congrats."
Oh, okay.
I'm like, okay, wait, I don't like this popping up. It's distracting. On the other hand, I'm like, oh, what's going on?
That's awesome.
So anyway, yeah, that's like disturbing me. But I had an interesting thought slash revelation the last couple days. And I think this is going to tie a few different like weird things together. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Hmm.
In my brain, not probably in anybody else's brain. Right. But I went to the chiropractor for the first time today. So
Hmm.
you and I talked about that. Listeners, I've never been to the chiropractor. My wife, for years and years and years, has been like, you need to go to the chiropractor.
Hmm.
Um, I'm in a lot of violent sports. I'm in a lot of sports that aren't violent, but I abuse my body pretty regularly. Not abuse it like with drugs or alcohol, but like it gets put through a lot, right? Like I'm
Hmm.
not gentle with anything, and my body would fall into that same category, right? And Kilted knows that, right? Like I'd run through a wall and not like pay attention and be like, oh, that probably hurt. So
Yeah.
it's like a thing, right? And so like she's always been like, you need to go, and I'm like, nah, nah, nah. And I'd like come home some days and be like, oh, like ruined, my back is hurt. She'd be like,
Hmm.
you need to go see a chiropractor. I'm like, I'm fine, I'm fine. It's like okay. And then I've had like a nagging injury, and she's been like saying it, and like I think it was like a couple weeks ago. I like came home from a workout and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I did something like during the workout in that spot. Like I was like, oh. I'm like, and it's still kind of tight. And she's like, cool, I made you an appointment for a chiropractor.
Good.
I was like, oh, and which first told me the thing that's kind of important here, as bad as it is, if she hadn't made that appointment, I still wouldn't have gone to the chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
She made the appointment. It's on the calendar. I'm going to the chiropractor because it's on the calendar. Like I
Yeah.
don't even like think about it. You know what I mean? Which gets to the point, like I'm not against a chiropractor. I
Mm-hmm.
my daughters go to the chiropractor. I recommend chiropractors to people.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't something I was interested in doing,
Yeah.
right? But she put it on the calendar. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the chiropractor because it's on my
Mm-hmm.
calendar. She's been pointing out lately to everybody who listens that I haven't been to the doctor because one of the things we've got to talk about today is that Kilted had a procedure done recently. And so they've
Yes,
been
I
teasing
did.
me that I need to go. And she says, I haven't been to the doctor in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been 5. I think I went, here's what I think. I think I went right before COVID
Okay.
because after COVID, like 6 months after COVID, I got a letter from my doctor and it was like, we are going to drop you from our patient roll because it's been a year and a half. And if you don't come back within 2 years, we're going to drop you. And I'm like, it's like 6 months after COVID. I'm not going to the doctor. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody was in pandemic, like scariness. Doctors
Mm-hmm.
were getting no patients. So they were like, you've got to come in
Yeah.
because they needed their patients. And I was like, I'm good. I just won't go to
Yeah.
the doctor anymore. I'll get a new
Yeah.
doctor. I didn't care. So I picked that one out of a hat to begin with. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I'll just get a new doctor. And so I haven't been since COVID. And so she was like, you need to go. And I'm like, yeah, like I think it's important that people go to doctors. I think it's important you had your procedure done.
Mm-hmm.
If she made me an appointment, I would probably go to the appointment. But like it's not something in my brain where I'm like, oh, I've got to do that.
Yeah.
And what this ties into, and then I'm super excited to hear your story. Um, I had another friend who like it was just recently, and they're like, hey, have you ever thought about doing like therapy? Or have you ever gone to couples therapy or your own
Mm-hmm.
therapy or any of that stuff? And I'm like, no, I never have. Have you ever thought about doing it? I'm like, no, never. Like it's not something I would do,
Yeah.
you know? And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, like I just am who I am. And they're like, don't you think it would help? And I'm like, I'm sure it would help. I'm sure it would help.
Yeah.
I recommend it to my daughters. One daughter wants to be a therapist. Another daughter
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be a psychologist at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've told my wife she should go to therapy multiple times. I had another girl who lived with
Sorry.
us who was like really against therapy, who I like kept pushing and pushing and has had great success. And so they're like, well, why don't you want to do it? And I'm like, it's not like a want thing. I just don't do the thing.
Yeah.
Right? I don't even like it doesn't like even click in my head. And they were like kind of like thought that was weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not against it, why wouldn't you just do it? And when I had that chiropractor appointment, I was like, I'm not against chiros and I never do it. And then
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not against doctors and I don't go to the doctors. I'm like, it's literally that I just don't do those
Yeah.
things. It has
It's
nothing
not
to,
it's not on your list.
and it's not like a judgment against those. And it's not that I don't feel like I could benefit from that. I think I would benefit going to the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Right. I think I would benefit going to the chiropractor. It's just not a thing that I'm like, oh, I need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why my brain is like even talking about it, I'm like, that sounds kind of dumb, but I'm not going to call the doctor tomorrow.
Yeah. It's just not a priority.
It's like not even on the list of priorities.
Mm-hmm. See,
But
but let me back it up a little bit. And I don't know. This could be if this is totally off the wall. Let me know. You've always had insurance through your work.
yes, always.
So for myself, I had a long, long time where I had no insurance, being 1099.
Mm-hmm.
And then being self-employed was a long time. And I didn't get insurance until I was told to, or said I had to pay a fine. So that's when I first started getting health insurance. And then and that's more like preventative. That's what they try to get you to do. Preventative,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And same thing, similar to with you. I had a doctor, and then I got a letter that they were moving away someplace. Like, okay, and we're moving away. And shortly thereafter was COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't go at all during COVID. I needed to find a new doctor. I'm paying I'm paying like all this money every month, and I didn't go for all those years. But then this year I'm like, okay, like I need to go to the doctor, and I just made it a priority, set an appointment, blah blah blah, did all that stuff. But and it may be because like that I not that I didn't have it because I've had it for this short amount of time, but that it was maybe more important to me because I didn't have it for so long. Just like for the dentist, I didn't go to the dentist for most of my 20s and 30s,
Yeah.
most of my 30s, and it was a lot of work to catch up and a lot of pain because I didn't want to go pay for it. Like at first I wasn't making enough to go. And then once it was like I didn't have the time to go. And then finally, like I got it all worked out, and it was like, oh, this was a mistake. So kids, go to the dentist at least.
It's funny because you say that, and that's as you're telling the story, I'm like, that's what happened to me, right? Like kind of a little bit different, but
Yeah.
I didn't go to the dentist, right? Like I went all growing up, it wasn't a thing. I'm not against dentists. Again, I'm not against like literally I told somebody 2 appointments ago that if I won the lotto, I would probably go to the dentist every month. And they're like, what? You'd go to the dentist all the time? I'm like, it's so relaxing. It's like meditation to me. I leave and I've got clean teeth. I go, I just love the experience. I've fallen asleep in the dentist chair so many times. Right? Because you've seen how busy I am, right? And I always am burning the candle at both ends. And then you put me in a chair and are like, just chill. And I'm like, the chiro today was like, is this keeping you from like going to sleep or sleeping well? I'm like, nothing keeps me from sleeping.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing.
Yeah. Like, no, not at all.
Nope. I could have a broken leg and I'd probably still be sleeping well. Like I wouldn't like, that'd be weird if I wasn't. Super weird. Like then I'd go to the doctor because I'd be like, what the hell's going on? But for me, I had insurance, but I was like, I don't want to find a dentist. I don't want to call. I don't want to do all this stuff. And so I wasn't going to the dentist. And then like Amy or something was like, we need to go to the dentist. I've made you an appointment. Notice a trend here. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to go to the dentist. And so I went and, they're like, we're going to have to spend like 2 hours on your teeth. They're like, this tartar is like caked on. It might take 2 or 3 appointments. I'm like, cool. Like, get to it. Like, you won't hurt me. So just like dig in. And so they're like, all right. And they're like digging in. They're going through it. And like, we get done. And like, I went back again, I don't know, like 7 or 8 months later. And they do it and it's better. But I got the bill. And it was a huge ass bill. And I'm like, whoa. What's up with this bill? And I was kind of younger, in my 20s. And I found out the way my insurance works is if you go every 6 months, it covers, like it starts by covering 50, then 60, then 70, then 80, then like 90. And if you miss, it starts back at 50. And I was like, oh, well, son of a bitch. And so like we make our appointments like years in advance. Yeah, we're coming every 6 months. We don't care. Early, great. 6 months, like so it became like a buddy thing for me where I was like, I ain't missing that appointment.
Yeah.
Like that becomes important.
Exactly. That's hilarious.
But yeah, so the same kind of a thing. And I was like, oh, that happened with me with the dentist. And it's a thing. It's a thing. So anyway, you had a procedure. Tell us. Tell the world. I did.
So yeah, the last time I was at the doctor, I thought I was at that age where I needed a colonoscopy, and they said, nope, you don't need to worry about that. And then for both of us during that time, during COVID, and I don't, other things happened. I mean, everything. I believe it was partly like with Chadwick Boseman dying, like that became on people's radar. So they bumped it down, figuring more people would come in. Whatever it was, it doesn't really matter. But now that when I went in, they're like, it's time, you need to go in, because they bumped it up to 50 and then back to 45. So anyways, yeah, it was so it was scheduled a ways in advance, and there's like a process because your system needs to be cleaned. And I decided to start, well, because you can do like 24 hours before, you can do like a clear liquid diet. And then you're drinking all the medicine and all that stuff. I decided to fast for 3 days. So I added 2 days onto my fast, which it was, once I get past the 24 hours, like for me, the fast is nothing besides, I mean, being tempted when everyone else is eating and stuff. But if I can just set away from that situation, I'm fine. But yeah, and I've never had this before. So I go in there like I'm all ready. I wasn't even, because there were like no water in the morning. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I didn't even brush my teeth. Not that I drink the water, but I'm like, I don't want like anything to happen. So usually with like, I guess I haven't had a lot of procedures, so I don't know about like options and things like that. But I had an option where, because I don't know how much insurance is covering, but I
Mhm.
could have saved like $25 if I like turned off the anesthesia early, which was kind of interesting. But then also, like in the same section, I could pay an extra $25. They would turn off the anesthesia early, and they would do quick release to pull the thing out. So, so I signed up for that.
So you signed up for that one.
But yeah, any men out there, if you're, because they do have the option where you could just poop in a box and send it in, and if there's anything wrong, they've got to do the colonoscopy anyways. But like it was nothing. Like you, I can
Wait, wait,
sleep.
wait. You could poop in a box? I didn't know that was an
That's what
option.
that's what Jamie did.
I pooping in a
Well,
box, like
actually,
I do that anyway. So
I heard poop in a box, but then I heard someone else say you poop and then you need to get like a little spoon and scoop it in and send it off. So I didn't pick that one. I'm not
so you
sure.
can't just poop in the
Listen,
box.
I'm not sure. Like I said, I thought it was pooping in a box. Someone else said you kind of got to scoop poop out of the toilet. I'm
Why
not
wouldn't you
sure.
just poop in the box?
I have no idea. But if
Or
anyone's
poop in the
concerned
yard?
or scared, yeah, poop in the yard. That happens
That
at your
happens
yard.
in my yard all the time.
Um, but yeah, it was super easy. Like I was sitting there chilling, like they put the IV in and everything. You're
Mhm.
just sitting there, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna take a little nap because you have to take this medicine that makes you go because your
Yeah,
system's got to be clear. So you have to
I
drink
don't need that
for
medicine.
like 42 ounces at midnight. Yeah, no, I had to do it at 5 p.m. Then I had to do it at midnight. So I'm like, it takes like 2 hours before you can feel like kind of normal to even think about going to bed and then getting up at 6 a.m. But anyway, so yeah, I was just like, I was tired anyway, so I was just laying back, and then the doctor came in and talked to him, and then they wheeled me in, and they had me in the position that I fall asleep anyways, because I fall asleep on my side and my leg up, and the anesthesiologist, he's pumping in the stuff, and I'm watching and talking. And then I'm like, I'm just gonna close my eyes because whenever it hits, it's gonna hit anyways. And you
Yeah.
know how like sometimes when you're falling asleep, you can kind of remember. Like
Yes.
it had to have been instant because like all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. Like I kept telling them like I need to go to the bathroom, and they're like, oh no, it's just air, and you just let it out. So I was shooting for like 24 hours straight. Besides that, it was like
Wait, so how
totally
is it
fine.
different?
Yeah, exactly. So it was super easy. And there was one polyp in there. They just take care of it when they're in there. They said
Just
it's
snip it.
probably hereditary. Yeah, I guess they freeze it and snip it.
Ooh.
But I have to go back in 5 years. I don't get every 10 years. So I'll get scheduled just to
Aren't
be
they supposed
safe.
to
You
do a
want to have
prostate
your
exam too? Did they check your prostate?
I think they milked it. I'm not sure. I didn't check that box.
Like it seems like all sorts of stuff that should be getting
Yeah,
done,
I
right?
if it did, they didn't say anything about it, but you figure if they're there, they might as well check that stuff.
They might as well. Um, yeah, no, I probably should. And again,
Mhm.
if my
This
wife
has been
made me
10 years.
if my wife made me an appointment, I would probably go. The odds of me calling,
Yeah,
the odds of me trying to find a
yeah.
doctor because I don't have a
That's the
doctor,
first step. Yeah.
and then calling and going through all of the rigmarole.
surely someone we went to school with at MSU is a doctor nearby you, and you could just go up to them and be more
I probably have
comfortable.
students who
Like,
are doctors nearby
yeah,
me,
exactly.
right?
And going back to the chiropractor, because you were talking about that,
Mm-hmm.
we did go to the chiropractor after our accident. I'm sure I talked even about it on here, but yeah, we loved it. Like when I went in, they checked everything out, and they were like, "You have the back of a 64-year-old man."
Oh
So it
no.
feels like that sometimes, and just that, and it got to the same point where it's just like, they did a bunch of adjustments. It was like every week for a while, and then they're like, "Okay, you're all better." So just pretty
And did you
awesome.
feel all better?
Yeah.
So I felt all better day, which they said, you might not notice anything. And I'm like, okay. But I like left and I was like, actually, I don't have any pain, which is kind of a weird sensation. So that's cool.
Yeah,
But
that's
then
awesome.
by tonight, it was all like tight again because
Hmm.
one of my problems in general is that I don't feel a lot of pain, right? That's what kind of
Hmm.
makes me a wrecking ball. And so for me, basically everything just felt tight. And that's how I knew something was wrong. I'm like, everything's
Yeah.
tight there. How much pain are you in? I'm like, I'm not really in any pain.
And you've done it for so long, your muscle memory is there where it can kind of get it back.
Yeah. So, they played with it and they're like, oh, yeah, it's good. They're like, wait, it's going to go back. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Hmm.
I'm like, I know how it works. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And they did it and it was good. And I'm like, yeah, I could see the benefit of doing this. I'll go back, and I made
Yeah.
two other appointments because I'm like, let's give you a chance to get that thing kind of all realigned and
Yeah.
set. And she's like, have you ever had trauma to your back before? And like, she kind of knows us. I'm like, you know what I do, right?
Like,
She's like,
yeah.
even like when you were little, I'm like, I don't know if I can remember a time when my body wasn't put through trauma. I go, how about
Hmm.
let's just start there?
Yeah.
I go, if you want worst case examples, and listeners, if you didn't know this, Kilted was around for this, but my entire upper half was 6 inches to my right from my lower half.
Hmm.
So if I was standing straight up, my legs and butt were here, and my tummy and shoulders were here. You could set things on my hip. Like
Yeah.
it was
Well,
literally a
that happened to me
table.
a few times playing
Yes.
ultimate, and but I had friends who were like, "You need to come in," and they just straightened
Yeah.
me up, worked
And
out
for
better.
me, I went to the doctor when it happened because I was like, I took my shirt off in front of a mirror to get in the shower, and I was like, that ain't right. And
Like
Amy's like,
something's wrong
what is
here.
wrong with you? Like it looked like I was from a movie. And she's like, you're going to the doctor. And so I went to the doctor and they're like, oh yeah, you need some Flexerol. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what? They're like, your muscles are just that tight. They're like, what were you doing? And I'm like, I threw like 5,000 forehands.
Hmm.
They're like, what about the other side? I'm like, I only throw with my right hand. So it was like
That was
5,000
it.
forehands. And I
That
was
was it.
playing handler that weekend at an ultimate
Hmm.
tournament. So it was
Yeah.
constant lean and that muscle
Hmm.
tightened and it shifted. But they put me on Flexerol, which apparently it was really funny. I took it and my brother's a doctor. So we're talking about, do you know anybody who's a doctor? I
Hmm.
called my brother and was like, hey, I had this thing. And he's like, oh, yeah. And they said it was all tight. And I'm like, yeah. And I go, and they gave me this thing called Flexerol, but I don't think it's working. He's like, why do you think that? I'm like, well, they warned me, like, when you take this, you're going to probably feel drowsy, don't have alcohol, don't drive and stuff. And he's like, yep, yep, yep. And I go, but I'm taking it and I feel zero. He's like, ooh. He goes, keep taking it. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, 1% of the population don't get the feelings. They only get the relaxation. He goes, so you're the 1% where you're not getting the drowsy, you're not getting that, which means you
Hmm.
can take whatever you want and it'll loosen up those muscles. He goes, so go to town. He goes, we only make those short doses so that people don't like get drunk on it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, so which this, I have that effect with a lot of drugs. They don't hit me the
Hmm.
same way. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, good to know. So
Yeah.
I'm like, it never
Like
bothered me and
sweet.
it worked.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Like this is the best.
heck yeah. So anyway, yeah, those are things we should do. Listeners, you should probably do this. Also, listeners, I had the thought, so many of you aren't on our Discord. We have a really cool Discord and we share lots of
Hmm.
things in it. Some things like publicly, some private. They're not meant to be private, so we could change them to public. But you all should consider joining us on our Discord. We'll throw that in the description this week, like an invite. So
Good
We're
idea.
not going to put it on Twitter because we've been kind of like bombarded before on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But, we'll put it out there for you loyal listeners. Come join our Discord, hang out with us. As we talked about, it's like popping up on my feed this whole time sitting here, people chatting. So you can come join
Yeah.
it. And we're there. If you just want to chat with us, we're on there every Thursday almost without fail,
Mm-hmm.
like 9 o'clock Eastern time. You can get
Mm-hmm.
on there and just chat with us, right? We're on there on most Wednesdays,
Mm-hmm.
Tuesdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays for sure. So
Yeah.
y'all can just sit there and like hang out with Kilted and Ball. We'd love that.
Mm-hmm. Be
So,
super awesome.
um, and time's almost up. We never got to talk to the thing that our bro Jason, I teased him with. So yes,
It'll have to
that'll
be
happen.
next week.
Yeah,
We've
because
got we've
that's
got
like a
so many things in the pipeline where it's just like whatever's coming up in life, but like what you were talking about is it can be anytime, any universal time. So
anytime, anytime. And speaking of, I started like I've worked on a project a few times, and I'm not going to tell you about it because I'm all excited and like I want it to be a surprise. But I worked on it really hard the last like 2 days, which for me is like an
uh-oh.
hour, and I was like, I can
That
see
means
this
that means you've
taking
been
shape.
writing.
And I'm like, this will be super exciting for Kilted when I get this
That
done.
means you've been writing. I need to
No, no,
check.
no. I mean,
Okay,
I
good.
have been writing, but that's not what this was about.
It was
So
something else.
it was about something else. Same vein, but yeah, something else. But yeah, yeah, I was laughing about the writing because we like jump chapters sometimes. And I was like, "Ooh,
Mm-hmm.
we need to get to work on this." So anyway, everybody, wish Kilted a happy birthday. Thank you for joining us. This is Ballbuster signing off.
Kill the Dragon Jair. Love you all.